There is something alluring, almost mystical, which intertwines the aberration and technical brilliance of some of the greatest forwards to play football. George Best, Diego Maradona, and Paul Gascoigne are just a few diamonds in the rough who have dazzled the world. Their idiosyncrasies, mesmerizing technique, and controversies on and off the pitch cementing them into football folklore. Luis Suarez looks to be the latest to carry this mantle. However, before these colorful characters made their mark on the football cosmos, a sprightly young Brazilian winger was arguably more outlandish, more brilliant than any of the others. Manuel Francisco dos Santos, or simply Garrincha, is one of the true Brazilian icons and greatest dribblers in football history, but was another embodiment of genius and madness rolled into one. Like the aforementioned live wires on the pitch, Garrincha was not born with a silver spoon in his mouth. On what planet was Garrincha born? On a small planet called Pau Grande. It is Garrincha's memorial in the blighted district of Maje, highlighting the Brazilian starlet's proletariat and humble roots. Garrincha was a Brazilian footballer who marked his name in the history of football with his crooked legs and his quick and disconcerting dribbles. Garrincha, born Manuel Francisco dos Santos, was a Brazilian footballer who is widely considered to be one of the greatest right wingers in the history of football. Despite having misshapen legs because of childhood polio, Garrincha became an imaginative and skillful dribbler, and he became for several clubs throughout his professional career, including Botafogo, Corinthians, Flamengo, and Olaria. He also played for the Brazilian national team. The Brazilian winger was born with several biological abnormalities: a deformed spine, a right leg that was bent outwards, and a left leg 6 centimeters shorter, which curved inwards. Garrincha was everything but the quintessential footballer. With his swaying walk and dainty frame, the name Garrincha was coined, translating to the little bird. Ironically, despite his enormous potential, Garrincha had little interest in pursuing a professional career and was not discovered by football scouts until he was in his late teens. However, since childhood, Garrincha stood out in football matches, playing football on the streets. He only started seriously playing at the age of 14 for the English-owned American Fabril textile factory team called Pau Grande Esporte Clube, and started working there at the age of 15. He was soon training with the players, although it was difficult for him to play the games because coach Carlos Pinto feared he could receive many knocks from his rivals, much older in age and physically built. After growing immensely frustrated of not having opportunities to play, he signed up for Serrano Football Club de Petrópolis and played there for almost a year, and after seeing him in action, his previous coach decided to recall him up again at Pau Grande, and he began to play, growing so much that they already recommended that he travel to Rio de Janeiro, then still the capital of Brazil, to try his luck and seek to play for one of the big teams there. Garrincha tried to prove himself at Fluminense first, then Flamengo and Vasco da Gama, but they did not even pay attention to him, believing that due to his physical problems, he would not have a chance. At this stage, Garrincha's aspirations to play professional football were slowly dying. Despite his physical disadvantages, Garrincha's technical ability impressed the local scouts and eventually persuaded the then married and parented Brazilian to sign for local club Botafogo in 1953. During his first training session, Garrincha showed his first sign of cheek and ingenuity by nutmegging Brazilian international Newton Santos, who as a result promptly recommended a Brazilian national team selector to monitor Garrincha's career. However, there were concerns about his training ethic and lifestyle, with Garrincha often drinking a bottle of cachaça, a Brazilian rum, on daily basis. Garrincha was quickly drafted into the Botafogo team by coach Gentil Cardoso. He debuted for the first team in 1953 as part of what is considered the greatest Botafogo team of all time, with Mario Lobo Zagallo, Didi, Amarildo, and Newton Santos, and from very early on it was noticeable that his strength was to dribble to the right and then cut in. He always faked and passed to the bewilderment of his markers, whom he ignored with total irreverence. Garrincha impressed, scoring a hat-trick on his reverse team debut against Bonsucesso, but progress was blocked by the highly impressive right winger Julinho. After Julinho departed for Fiorentina, who incidentally was later voted Fiorentina's greatest ever player, Garrincha shone in his his absence, scoring 20 goals in 26 games for Botafogo and helping them to lift the Campeonato Carioca in 1957. Throughout his 12-year stay, he continued to shine, scoring 232 goals in 581 games, while leading Botafogo to the league title and elevating the team to legendary status. Despite his excellent performance, he had serious competition from the national team in his position. His exceptional exploits in the Campeonato Carioca for Botafogo persuaded national team selectors to include him in the 1958 World Cup roster for Sweden, despite his absence from the 1954 World Cup. Shortly before the tournament, Garrincha scored one of his most renowned goals against Fiorentina, dribbling past 4 players and then the goalkeeper. He ignored an open goal and had the audacity to wait for a defender to get back before dribbling past him again and then scoring. Complete confidence and impetuous skill became a hallmark for the Brazilian, but the national team were disappointed with his irresponsibility and childlike playfulness he showed. As a result, Garrincha did not play the first 2 fixtures of the World Cup. However, a crunch tie against the tournament favorites USSR beckoned, with the winner of the match through to the next round of the tournament and escaping a playoff against England. Garrincha and Pelé started heralding the start of a formidable partnership that would never be beaten in international football. Garrincha and Pelé instantly hit the ground running, playing what was dubbed by Brazilians as the best 3 minutes of football of all time by completely dominating the USSR in the opening moments of the match before winning comfortably 2-0. Brazil then edged past Wales in the quarterfinals, with Garrincha and Pelé continuing to haunt the opposition. Mel Hopkins, a fullback for Wales, described Garrincha: "He was more of a danger than Pelé, and I believe at the time a phenomenon capable of sheer magic. It was difficult to know which way he was going to go because of his leg and because he was as comfortable on his left foot as his right, so he could cut inside or go down the line, and he had a ferocious shot too." Brazilian went on to win their first ever World Cup in 1958 with Garrincha and Pelé in the best 11 of the tournament. Garrincha was at first confused about the celebrations, thinking that Brazil had to play every team in the competition twice, like in the traditional league format. Once again, there was some madness to the genius. After the highs of Brazil's first ever World Cup, Garrincha, like many other footballers who rapidly elevate to stardom, began to get sucked into the allurement, riches, and the invigorment of fame. His vice of drinking began to escapulate his life, resulting in a rapid weight gain, unexpected pregnancies, and an incident which even resulted in him running over his own father followed. The stocky winger was dropped from the national team as a result, before being called up again for the 1962 World Cup in Chile. After Pelé got injured during the second game of the tournament, Garrincha was the team's sole talisman, described by the English press as Stanley Matthews, Tim Finney, and a snake charmer rolled into one. Garrincha propelled Brazil to a successive World Cup victory, finishing top scorer, unheard of for a right winger at the time, and crowned the player of the tournament. While Garrincha was the stereotypical bad boy off the pitch, he was a golden boy on the pitch. At the age of 32, the Pau Grande-born star was haunted with a constant knee injury which troubled him for the majority of his career and was severely lacking match fitness. As a result, he played a bit part role during the 1966 World Cup, notably in the 3-1 loss to Hungary at Goodison Park in England, his last international match and his only defeat for the Brazilian national team. After 12 years, Botafogo grew tired of the antics which came with Garrincha and sold him to Corinthians in 1966. Despite a rapid decline, Garrincha carried on playing professional football until the age of 40. After having an estimated 14 children, developing alcoholism and finding himself in severe marital and financial problems, Garrincha's health rapidly declined. In 1982, he was hospitalized 8 times due to alcohol and psychological problems. In 1983, Garrincha died in an alcoholic coma due to liver cirrhosis at the age of 49. Despite the melancholic end to an illustrious career, Garrincha is still one of the most respected and revered football to ever grace the sport. The man was a complete footballer. He possessed rapid acceleration, breathtaking dribbling ability, and had incredible technique with either foot, and had a fierce shot and free kick in his locker. His style was unlike the conventional winger at the time who hugged the touchline. He was similar to the inside forward, which is commonplace today. It was this unpredictable and multi-dimensional play which caused so much havoc during his career. Off the pitch, Garrincha himself may have been a figure of depression and insanity, but to the people of Brazil, he is a manifestation of fun, conviviality and hope. He embodied the Brazilian way with his stunning skills and attractive play, and was the archetypical class clown of Brazil's most heralded football dynasty. While Pelé is renowned as the greatest Brazilian to play the sport by the world, the Brazilian find it sacrilege not to mention Garrincha in the same sentence. Had Garrincha not had troubles with alcohol and other demons which come with fame, his career at top level may have been prolonged. However, it was maybe his human element, this chink in the armor of someone who was described as from another planet by the media, which identify him with the nation by such a degree. Perhaps it was just the simplicity of the star who never stopped being a child, with his impossible dribbling and his childlike imagination. As the Uruguayan journalist Eduardo Galeano aptly put, in the entire history of football, no one made more people happy than Garrincha. His name will always be linked to on-field excellence, making him one of football's most captivating and unforgettable players. He had a talent for creating opportunities that seemed to appear out of thin air, astonishing both supporters and his rival. Garrincha is praised for his agility, pace, and accurate ball control. He was a little but powerful right winger with exceptional dribbling abilities. He was known for his dribbling, and football writer Scott Murray hailed him as the best dribbler ever. He was adored by the Brazilians for his easygoing attitude and talent at outwitting opponents. They affectionately referred to him as the joy of the people. Despite his diminutive size, he showed his talent at heading and even scored 4 times directly from corners. He had a significant role in crucial World Cup goals, and he frequently converted individual plays into precise passes for teammates. In 1954, he won the Intercontinental Quadrangular Tournament, and in 1957, 1961 and 1962, he won multiple state championships. His victories included participation in the international competitions, including the 1958 Interclub Tournament in Mexico, the 1960 International Tournament in Colombia, and the 1961 International Tournament in Costa Rica, with triumphs at the Rio Sao Paulo Tournament in 1962 and 1964, the World Champions Club, also known as the Paris International Championship in 1963, and the Ibero-American Tournament and the Paramaribo Cup in 1964. Garrincha's skill was on display in a variety of contests. Garrincha's accomplishments shone brilliantly in both domestic and foreign contexts. He won the Golden Ball and the Golden Boot medals at the 1962 World Cup for his contribution to Brazil's triumph in 1958 and 1962. His remarkable abilities were also acknowledged with choices in the 1958 and 1962 FIFA World Cup All-Star teams. He won individual accolades such as the Brazilian Championship Best Player in 1962, the Rio Sao Paulo Tournament Best Player in 1962, and the Carioca Championship Best Player in 1957, 1961, and 1962 domestically. He earned a spot on the FIFA World Cup all-time team and was honored as a member of the World Team of the 20th century. His influence led him to recognition in illustrious lists such as the L'Equipe's top 50 South American footballers in history and World Soccer's greatest players of the 20th century. He was recognized as the Ballon d'Or winner in 1962. He was placed 8th on the IFFHS World Player of the 20th Century list. Perhaps the best dribbler in the history of football and a popular idol in Brazil, on the same level as Pelé, after his dazzling tricks on his markers on the right wing. Garrincha is considered the perfect model of playing football the Brazilian way, creative par excellence with his dribbles and magical play. He is related to what Brazilian poets defined as the joy of the people.